Let's Talk with Pat Williams, managing member of CyberCletch, your marketing management team.
Thank you for taking some time out of your day and spending a few minutes with me to explain the importance and provide some tips and tricks on speaking and enunciating in a way that people will listen when you're either talking on video or during a presentation.
Speaking to be heard.
Speaking to be heard. And I figure you're the guy to offer that information because of your experience.
Now why is that? What is my experience?
How many students have you taught over the last how many years?
Almost up to about 1,500 actually.
Well, why don't you explain where you are, what you do, what program you teach?
For the last 17 years or so, I've been teaching radio production and other classes related to radio broadcasting at Seneca College's School of Communication Arts. Recently renamed, actually, the School of Media and Marketing as of last year. So that's
where I am. School of Media and Marketing. Well, they're keeping with the times, right?
Yeah.
And Seneca is in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Canada. The North Country.
The North Country. Do you have snow yet?
No snow yet.
Not here either. I saw a presentation of yours, and since the last person that I interviewed was an image coach talking about how we should look online, and then you called me and gave me some great tips as well, I thought you are perfect to be the next guest to talk about how we should sound, either in video like this, how we talk to people, or how we present to a group, because it's the same concepts when you're talking on the radio as a broadcaster.
Absolutely. There's so many tips and tricks and things that you can do to improve the way you communicate. And one of them, if you apply a simple rule, a caramel secret, if you will, of radio broadcasting to your communications online via the web and podcasting, it's speaking to one person.
I love that.
A big misconception.
You call it the caramel secret.
The caramel secret of radio.
I love that.
Over the 17 years of teaching, I've used so many different analogies, and I've called a bunch of different things the caramel secret of radio, but certainly the caramel secret of communicating your message effectively is speaking to one person. And that's something that a lot of people think that, they're speaking to a group of people on a podcast, and they want to sound bigger than they are, and so they're saying, listen all you people and blah, blah, blah. But the problem is that it's really one person receiving the message at a time. And, most times when you're listening to the radio or when you're watching podcasts, how many people are around you listening and sharing at the same time as you? It's just one.
You're right. You usually have your headphones in and you're on your own, and it becomes an intimate connection then.
Absolutely.
Because you're one-on-one.
In any teaching scenario or any communication scenario, what you need to have total buy-in is that connection with the person you're speaking with. And so you have to apply those theories to your communications, whether it be presenting live in a room to multiple people. You still need to reach one person at a time. And certainly in podcast form or video podcast or on audio podcast or radio, you're speaking to one person. It's a really important thing.
And actually, when you mention that applies very much in social media as well. Because certainly if you're an established brand or an established company personality, you can broadcast and get away with it. But if you're trying to build a list or build connections, you really do have to interact one-on-one with people online so that they're more engaged with you.
Absolutely. Engagement is the crucial factor, right? When you're selling a product or you're selling a service, getting them engaged to buy into your message is crucial. You're not going to sell your product. You're not going to sell your ideas or your theories unless you have that buy-in from the people you're talking to.
And by talking one-on-one, what you're saying is by talking directly to the person, as though you're only talking to one person, the caramel secret, that helps create the buy-in.
Absolutely.
And that sounds kind of cold, doesn't it? I'm only talking to you, so you will buy my product.
But it's, I mean, forget the analogy of a product for a second. If you are teaching and you're trying to tell a class, a lesson, that's what you're selling. You're selling the idea of what it is you're talking about. And so it's not necessarily a product or getting them to buy in, as in open up their wallet and spend money. You want them to buy in and believe what it is that you're saying. To the content of your message. Absolutely. And
I like that. That sounds much nicer.
I'm trying to do it. I don't do a lot of video podcasts, so I don't, with the screen down here with your pretty face here, and I'm talking to you. I can see eye contact, but when I'm trying to get a point across, I do look up at the lens or the camera and speak directly to it. And to help that, I sometimes will use an aid. In this case, it's a picture of my 9-year-old daughter, and I have that right beside the video camera, so that when I try to make a point about something, I look into my daughter's eyes, and I have that connection, hopefully, with the person that's on the other side of the camera.
Is she sticking out her tongue?
She is sticking out her tongue. She's a little cheeky monkey, that one.
Okay, so how do you talk seriously to me looking at that?
I would probably recommend you use a picture that maybe has someone that's closer in resemblance to your P1, to the person that you're actually trying to communicate the message to.
Well, actually, it would be awesome, because I have a hard time interacting with you and looking at the camera. It's really difficult, because the way I communicate, I feed off of you.
Right.
Well, all communication is like that. And so I would need a picture of you up there. If I had known about that, I could have gotten one and posted it up there and then looked in your eyes.
One of the, and it's all well and good to talk about this theory about communicating to one person, but the other secret, and if we're going to talk about the caramel secret of podcasting or internet broadcasting, is that many of the rules that we have and always have thought about in broadcasting don't necessarily apply. There's a lot bigger of a gray area or a kind of a leniency with regards to some of those rules. Some of the things that we would for sure never do on radio, you can get away with in a podcast form. And I'm not talking about language or specifically content. I'm saying that the way in which they're spreading their message, and the kind of the main reason for that is that usually when you have someone watching a podcast or listening to a podcast or even presenting or listening in a room, they're much more of a captive audience than they would be to a typical radio broadcast. And so as soon as you have that attention of that person a little bit more than you would, you can have a little bit of leeway with certain things. Like, for example, talking over music. I would never let or encourage anybody to produce anything with spoken word over top of singing. Because lots of analysis has been done on this, and the proof is that they will listen to the person singing way before they'll listen to the person saying anything. And so if you're talking about a really important message, it's going to be lost to the people who are singing the words to the song underneath them, right?
So what you're saying is it's okay to have music in the background just as long as there isn't a singing voice as well,
right?
Because that singing voice competes with the voice of the message.
Absolutely.
I would be distracted by that.
Yeah, but a lot of things are, again, there's a little bit of a gray area, because there are going to be some people that are listening to your podcast or your presentation intently, and they can bypass that. They can filter out that music to some extent and listen to what's going on, because they're close range, because they have headphones on or whatever, but they have a little bit more of a power of doing that. Like, when you're giving a presentation, and I was reading an article a couple months ago, and they were talking about social media and its impact on presentations and live presentations and conferences, and presenters stopping in the middle of the conference and getting upset at the audience for not paying attention to what's going on, because they're all on their iPads, or they're all on their phones or their Blackberries. The truth is that we're a society now where we can actually do that. We can actually digest multiple streams of information at any given time and be able to do it to our advantage. In many cases, those people are actually tweeting thoughts of your presentation to the world, right?
And it's a promotion. I mean, if all the conferences I go to, people want you to do that.
I mean, some of my students certainly are on Facebook and they're updating things and not, have nothing to do with my class. And so if it's a really important point that I want them to pay attention, I'll notice it and make a point of it in the class. But for most times, I don't acknowledge the fact that they're actually on their devices because they can hopefully receive, multiple streams of information.
Now, when you make your point is, I was reading through some of your notes that you recommend changing inflection or putting emphasis on different words in order to keep your listener active.
Yeah, I think that's the mistake that a lot of people make when they're presenting is that they don't pay as close attention as they should to their performance, if you will. And there's 4 simple things that you could do to really make your presentation effective. And that's adjust your pitch, adjust your pace, spend time pausing, and it's not always stopping between sentences. It could be stopping mid-sentence, and also the projection element of it, the actual, putting that volume out there in the air so that the listeners, whether there's a microphone involved or not, they can actually still hear you projecting. I've been to so many conferences where the presenter speaks in one monotone voice for 15 minutes, and by the time 15 minutes rolls around, the audience is looking for other things to learn, and so they're on their computers, they're on their phones, and they've lost total interest. So how do you keep them interested? You adjust your pitch, you adjust your tempo, the pace of your actual speech. You pause in certain spots to emphasize things, and you certainly have to always project, whether there's a microphone or not.
That's true. I think when we have the monotone, it's okay when the conversation is back and forth like this, but when you're presenting and you're speaking for a long period of time, and 2 people come to mind as really good examples of that, and that is William Shatner and also Howard Cosell,
Absolutely.
because they spoke differently. You listen to them when they talk. And as much as people like to tease William Shatner about being dramatic, you stop and listen to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, William Shatner's kind of experience in acting first and then presenting second, because he just did a cross-Canada tour of kind of his life in a nutshell. And
I didn't know that.
Glimpses of it on YouTube. And I mean, they're just brilliant because he can tell a story. How can he tell a story? He can keep you interested from the first word to the very last word. And how does he do that? Well, he has a very unique delivery, and that adjusts the pace, the pitch, the pausing, and the projection. And I think that's a true mark of a performer and the person who has the ability to pass on a message is to have that presentation skills. And
the reason I thought of him is I just posted a synopsis of his life on my CanadianaConnection.com website.
Excellent. Cross-promoting. Very well done.
Yes.
Full stars to Patricia.
Well, since we're talking to a Canadian. Myths. You talked about audience myths. And I'm not picturing you naked.
Please, thank you. It always kills me when I speak to someone that's worried about or nervous about speaking to people, and they say, so-and-so told me I should just picture my audience naked. And, that may have worked at some point. I can't imagine it ever working, because as soon as you start, your mind starts drifting to other areas, like maybe even naked people, first of all, that's a little scary, unless you're talking to maybe a 20-year-old group of IT professionals that are all fit and in good shape. I mean, it can be very daunting to picture a wide age range of audience. Present company notwithstanding. But, I think that what that does to the presenter is that it actually spends their time focusing on the wrong thing. It takes their ideas and their thoughts away from the message. Rely on your message. You're telling them something that you know and you have experience in, and they are sitting there wanting to listen to this. And so find an interesting way of delivering it, and ignore the idea of picturing them naked, because that never works.
And I think you said something key there, is that they're there because they want to learn something from you.
Absolutely.
And when you're presenting and you're not used to it, you forget that you have knowledge. I have a hard time. I tend to think everybody knows what I know, and because I know it.
Yeah.
And that's just not true. Everybody's experiences are unique, and everybody has something to share. So
Absolutely.
if you've been asked to speak, and picturing them naked, I would be so sidetracked wondering if they're wearing socks.
That's right. Boxers and briefs. One of the other myths is speak over their heads. Pick a spot on the back wall and focus on that.
Yeah.
Problem with that is that you're losing eye contact with your presenter, or the people you're actually delivering your message to. As soon as you lose eye contact with your audience, you're losing that connection that we talked about earlier. That is so crucial to them buying into your message, and so eye contact is paramount. You need to make sure you maintain eye contact.
And that's that. Yeah, you lose that one-to-one connection we discussed earlier. Yeah. That's Absolutely. So important.
Yeah. So never do that.
Never do that. Was there any other myths?
The other one is speaking to the lowest person in the audience, the person that needs the most help in understanding your message. Let's speak somewhere in the middle of the crowd, and hopefully the people who are in tune with what you're talking about will not lose interest, and the people who are struggling to understand what you're doing will catch up eventually. That's the theory, but certainly somewhere in the middle of your audience is where you need to aim, not at the bottom. Don't do that.
Yeah, I made that mistake once in doing a Facebook seminar. I went prepared to present business pages, and the majority of the people in the audience didn't even understand personal profiles, and I taught to the lowest common denominator, and it actually I wouldn't have considered it a success. It didn't go as well as it would have had I stayed on task and done what I had planned to do.
Yeah.
So
they would eventually catch up.
I don't know. While you were talking, I thought of something, and I want to ask you about it. It's in regards to the college that you teach at, and the fact that most of your students go there to learn radio broadcasting, correct? So is their goal to be on radio or to help behind the scenes?
Certainly, I mean, that might be what brings them into the building. You only are aware of the one voice that you hear on radio. You don't really know that for every one person you hear on radio, there's probably 10 people behind the scenes, selling the airtime to writing content and producing content. So it's what certainly brings them into the door in most cases. But some of them, they walk in the door knowing that they never want to speak because, A, they have that fear of speaking to people. And then when they come into the course and they realize that all you're doing is talking to one person. So, it's just talking to your best friend. It's having a conversation about your day to that one person, and that's what's going to relate to your audience.
Well, what I was wondering was, now that social media and podcasting and people creating their own videos is really getting big, I'm wondering if you're getting more people that are coming into your program, or will be getting more people coming into your program, not with the thought of working in radio necessarily, but the thought of taking what they learn and applying it online. Absolutely.
Let me answer the question with a story and a little bit of a question back, right? When you think of successful radio stations or successful shows on radio, what is it that you as the listener are getting out of that? I'm putting you on the spot now.
That would require that I listen to radio, right?
So, but you listen to content on the web. You listen to...
Oh, yes.
You listen to stuff.
I have to be learning something or enjoying the music.
Right. So you need to be entertained. You need to get something out of that. Well, the method in delivering the entertainment, if you will, can change 4 ways to Sunday. Who cares what the method of delivering that message is? The point is that, we all have to figure out what that message is. And so, one of the other parts to my presentation that you saw, that you talked about, is that editing and using a really strict editing process and making your message as streamlined as possible. Using as few words as possible. Picture every word costing money, right? And so if you're going to deliver a message, you want to deliver a message as most effective as you can, but for as little amount of money. And so using smaller words instead of 5-syllable words, use 2-syllable words. Instead of using 10 words, use 5 words that will get your message across, and then you're saving money. And so editing your speech to make sure that every single word that you say makes sense is a crucial way of delivering that. Back to the important part about delivering the message. Well, that theory of radio broadcasting will never change. And so we bring lots of students in that have the theory that they want to go on radio, but after training them in delivering a message and telling a story, they can take that and apply that to anything, and including social media. I'm going to be giving a presentation or spending some time back when you were in Toronto. Do you remember Humble and Fred?
Of course, yeah.
The Edge, back when you were there.
Yeah.
Well, they've both been fired from various radio stations and are no longer working in commercial radio, but they do a very, very hilarious podcast. They do. What's that?
They were fired.
They were fired. They were fired at different times and by different radio stations because they kind of had broken up, and one went to another station, one went to another. Anyway, long and short of it, they're doing a podcast, and so I'm going to go into their show sometime in the new year and talk about what colleges are doing to kind of adjust the curriculum to allow for social media. Well, the point is that all we're doing is we're saying that don't get so hung up on the delivery method of the message. And, that's what's made radio successful. Back when FM radio came out, they said it was going to be the death of AM radio. When FM was successful and television came out, they said, television is going to see the death of radio. Then satellite radio came out. Satellite was going to be the death of traditional transition or terrestrial radio. It never happened. When CD Walkmans came out, it was going to be the death of radio. Well, why is it not the death of radio? Because we are still tuning in to be entertained.
Yes, yes. But they said the same thing about videos and movies at the theater.
Absolutely. So my point about Humble and Fred is that they're doing a really great podcast. By the way, if you're going to check it out, Google Humble and Fred Radio. It's humbleandfredradio.com. They're available on iTunes.
What I'll do is I'll add a link when I get this up on my site as well.
And they will be thrilled when you do that, because I'll text them or I'll message them and say that social media strikes again, and the message of you tell 2 friends and we'll tell 2 friends, and in your case we'll tell a couple 100,000 friends of yours.
Wait, wasn't that a hair commercial?
Exactly. But my point is that you're going to be able to still deliver a message with the method in which the message gets delivered. Who cares? That's
exactly, that's what I was thinking, is that the students coming into your program are not just preparing for radio. I mean, they're preparing for sending a message into the future, no matter what medium.
Yep.
Which is kind of awesome, Jim.
Thank you.
Well, I don't want to keep you much longer, but I do want, I know that you have a personal blog that I read when you post, which is kind of rarely lately. I love the stories about your daughters.
Stories, and I'll tease a little story that I'm going to write in the next couple of days. Picture. My wife's here now. I haven't edited this in my head, so I don't know how we're going to deliver it. I've been talking about maybe getting the V operation. Do you need any more?
The V operation, okay.
And so we were at dinner with Natalie's parent, talking about me having this potential V operation.
So let me get this straight. You're talking about the V operation with your in-laws.
Yes. Well, I mean, it came up. But instead of the V operation, we changed it because the kids were there. We thought we would edit it. We referred to it, I referred to it as getting my nose operated on. And so picture us having this conversation and inserting the word nose for what it is we're doing, and then Julia and Jordan jumping in and adding their own comments and asking questions about, what can you do? And then I said, well, I'm curious about how soon I'll be able to, blow my nose afterwards. And then the whole conversation went to laughs and from there on. Anyway, not filtered, not perused by my editor in chief yet, but certainly that's coming up in a blog soon. But
well, thank you very much, Jim. It's always entertaining talking to you.
Thank you, Patricia.
And I'll talk to you again soon.